Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Izuku x MOMO Part 3. Brace yourselves for more excitement. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button, and check out my second channel, Snuggy Dude, link in the description. Your support means everything. Let's dive into the video, enjoy. The battle was going in Momo's favor, much to Tokoyami's surprise. He had hoped to overwhelm the dark-haired girl with Dark Shadow, forcing her towards the limits and catching her off guard. However, Momo was constantly on the move. Unaware of his companion's speed and agility, Tokoyami chose to dodge the living shadow instead of creating a shield. He countered with smoke and flash bombs to stun and confuse Momo. Dark Shadow weakened in the light, and Tokoyami struggled to see through the smoke. He didn't notice when Momo struck him from behind, disappearing into the haze. Another blow came from below, directly at his legs. The tide turned in Momo's favor as Tokoyami gradually fell to the ground. Midnight declared, "Tokoyami can't continue. Victory for Yaoyorozu." The applause erupted as the heroes marveled at Momo's skill in tying up the situation. Many hadn't expected much from this encounter. The other battles were not as intense. Mina easily defeated Aoyama, the eternal clash of lost brothers, and finally, the showdown between Bakugo and Uraka, who proved herself against the explosive blonde. Opinions were divided on whether it was heroic to unleash full force or villainous to take advantage of a supposed disadvantage. Momo checked the stadium screen for the upcoming matches of her friend and potential partner in the second round. Kyoka asked with a smile, "Nervous?" Momo admitted with excitement, "Very." She couldn't take her eyes off the screen. Kyoka inquired, "Who do you think will win?" Momo turned to her with a small smile and replied, "Izuku." Suddenly, Bakugo's mocking laughter interrupted. Bakugo sneered, "Come on, Momo. The idiot Deku is going to lose. He's always been a loser, and now they'll finally kick him out of where he doesn't belong." His proud and arrogant smile angered Momo and her friend. Momo retorted, "Is he such a loser that he finished the race first?" Bakugo scowled. "Is he such a loser that he outperformed you in the entrance exam?" The blonde clicked his tongue in frustration. "Stop talking nonsense, Bakugo. You've been treating him like trash for too long just because he wants to follow his path. It bothers you so much that he's progressing that you seize the slightest opportunity to annoy him, just like when we were kids." Bakugo insisted, "I'm just stating the truth. That idiot won't go beyond this moment. He just got lucky." His arrogant smile returned. Looking over Momo's shoulder, he noticed the approaching battle. "I propose something." Momo asked, "What is it?" If looks could kill, Bakugo would be in a morgue right now. Bakugo said knowingly, "Let's make a bet." Aware that Deku couldn't handle the winter and his power, he continued, "If half and half wins, we'll have a date." Indignant murmurs erupted from Mineta's side. Momo countered, "If Izuku wins, you'll stop bothering me for the rest of the year. That means I don't want to hear from you again. Deal?" Bakugo hesitated for a second before smiling again. "Deal," he said, sealing the bet. Kirishima whispered to Kaminari, "This will end badly, right?" Kaminari nodded slowly. Tension filled the participants' side. Endeavor hadn't expected his son's nonsense to affect him in this competition. His refusal to use his fire would lead him to fall against any fourth-rate villain once he left UA. His masterpiece was wayward and rebellious, more than usual. In the second round, he saw a rivalry brewing between his son and the green-haired boy with a power similar to All Might's. The same brat was walking towards the stadium, believing he could do something against Shoto's perfection. Endeavor muttered, "Brat." He looked at the freckled boy, seemingly disinterested and even annoyed. Izuku calmly asked, "Do you need something, Endeavor-san?" His tone and demeanor somehow reminded Endeavor of Hawks and his nonsense with just one sentence. Endeavor declared, "You will be the ultimate test for my masterpiece, to make him finally abandon his stupid idea and accept his power." The freckled boy ignored him and continued on his way. "Izuku, tell me, Endeavor-san, if your father had forced you to do something without the possibility of doing what you wanted, how would you take it? If they forced you to fight despite not wanting to, always pushing your limits and treating you like little more than a tool, how would you feel? Would you be able to desire something that came from your father? If, in the midst of all that, your only hope turned into despair because of your father, would you be able to forgive him?" "Endeavor, what's all this about, kid?" The question seemed strange to the fire hero, who didn't understand what the boy was getting at. If they made you fight despite not wanting to, always pushing your limits and treating you like little more than a tool, how would you feel? Would you be able to desire something that came from your father? If, in the midst of all that, your only hope turned into despair because of your father, would you be able to forgive him? Endeavor, what's all this about, kid? The question seemed strange to the fire hero, who didn't understand what the boy was getting at. Izuku, Shoto is not a machine, and you are little more than an abuser. That's the harsh reality. The pressure was felt on both sides, and neither would give in. You call tantrums and fits a trauma. You took everything from him, robbed him of a normal childhood, took away his brothers, and above all, you drove his mother insane, turning her crazy. The freckled boy turned to face the hero, whose flames extinguished in an instant. You are just a tyrant, garbage who, in the face of harsh reality, twisted his desires into a simple boy who needed a family. Do you want Shoto to become like you? Endeavor, he will be better than me. Izuku, he will be the same. He will be a hero and, with effort, will reach number 2, surpassed by someone who can smile and be with people, unlike you. The freckled boy turned directly towards the exit. If you want him to be better than you, simple, stay away from him and his family. The number 2 hero glared at the exit with anger. That kid was no one to tell him how to do things, and yet, he was right. Izuku arrived slightly later. He didn't have to stop to chat with a professional hero, but he was tired of this part of the story. He didn't want to go through the trouble of making Shoto understand again that he was good for him, so he would do it in the best way possible, through punches. Midnight, Midoriya-kun, are you ready? The freckled boy nodded with his hands in his pockets. This would be fun. Todoroki-kun, are you ready? The two-tone boy nodded, ready to trap his rival in ice. Begin. The two-tone boy was the first to attack with a wave of ice towards the freckled boy, who, with a kick, shattered the ice, sending a gust of wind towards the two-tone boy, who did not expect that. Izuku, very weak. He said with a bored look. Shoto, TSK. He launched another wave of ice, this time larger, and again, with a kick, the freckled boy dissipated the attack. Izuku, very predictable. Shoto, he launched a large ice wall directly towards the freckled boy. It was too big and unavoidable, but the freckled boy destroyed it with a kick. Izuku, is that all you have? The great and powerful Todoroki Shoto only has this? I told you I would break your ice. The heterochromatic boy looked angry at the freckled boy. Shoto, fight seriously, he launched ice again without touching the freckled boy. Stop playing, he launched another wave of ice that was once again shattered. Izuku, who's playing here? I'm not the one limiting myself to 50% just because I don't accept my genetics. The two-tone boy got angrier, launching more ice and feeling the cold in his muscles. I recommend not doing that anymore, Todoroki. Since you refuse to use your fire, the ice will make its way through your body, freezing the flesh and making your bones fragile. In less time than you think, you'll have hypothermia. He said by his side. The two-tone boy didn't even realize when he got there. Shoto, this is your fire, he launched more ice, this time beside him, and of course, the freckled boy avoided it, appearing on his left. Izuku, how curious. I didn't know I was fighting against Ice Endeavor. He dodged the ice again, standing on a piece of ice. Shoto, I'm not him, he tried to launch another attack, but the cold was too much, so the freckled boy took advantage and, with a kick, embedded him into the ground, shattering the ice around. Izuku, in that, you're wrong, Shoto. You have his gaze, the two-tone boy was static on the ground. That look full of hatred and that aura of a cold and heartless demon is just like Endeavor's. You turned out exactly how he wanted, and you didn't even realize it. Do you want to be different from him? You wouldn't have passed the entrance exam. He said, leaving the two-tone boy lying on the ground. Midnight, Todoroki can't continue. Midoriya wins, she declared with surprise at seeing her student's power. In the 1A stands, Bakugo's grinding teeth could be heard, he lost the bet. Shoto was quickly moved to the infirmary, his body was seriously injured, not because of his opponent, but his own quirk had left him badly damaged. Recovery wasn't sure how he continued moving his limbs, the ice wreaked havoc on his muscles and skin, causing a minor burn. Fortunately, it all ended before more significant harm occurred. Shoto, woke up in the infirmary, looking disinterestedly at the ceiling, contemplating what the freckled one had said. Momo, Todoroki-san? The black-haired girl went to check on the two-tone boy, not expecting things to turn out so badly. Shoto, Yaoyorozu? He looked at her with obvious concern. What are you doing here? Momo, I needed to see the damage you've done to yourself. I can't stand seeing a classmate in such a state. She declared firmly, which seemed a bit extreme to the two-tone boy. Shoto, you see that I'm fine now, go away. You need to prepare for your match. He said as coldly as always. Momo, I'm already prepared. I have like 10 plans to defeat Mina-san, and I feel more needed here by your side. Shoto didn't say anything, just stared at the ceiling. Are you okay? Shoto, I don't know. His mind kept repeating what Midoriya said about his father and how similar they are. Yaoyorozu, he wasn't sure if it was right to involve someone else in this mental mess, but he needed an external opinion. Do you think I resemble Endeavor? Momo, she thought for a minute, or at least seemed to be. Actually, she was smiling internally because of the doubt she instilled. In a way, yes, you are similar to Endeavor, Todoroki-san. Shoto sat up a bit, looking at the black-haired girl. Shoto, in what? He tried to sound calm, but there was still that denial in him that wanted to speak up and refute her. Momo, you tend to be as cold as Endeavor. When someone talks to you, it seems like you might kill them just by looking at them. You always work alone, even if you need someone's help. You're very stubborn, like Endeavor. She was honest with Shoto, who lowered his gaze. Shoto, do you really think that of me? Or is it just because Midoriya told you? She got a little angry about it, but it was understandable. Both Izuku and she were very close, and he had every right to say that he influenced her. Momo, Izuku is somewhat closed about what he thinks. He'd rather eat a battery than say what he thinks about people if it makes them do something stupid and regrettable. He can be cruel sometimes, yes, but it doesn't usually change my opinion about people. She was completely honest with Shoto, who expected her to get nervous when mentioning the freckled one. Are you worried about something? Shoto, I don't want to be like Endeavor. I hate resembling him, I hate everything related to him, and yet, he clenched the sheath that covered him tightly. He didn't like the reality. I am a version of him. I release ice instead of fire, and I hate it. I hate myself. He wanted to shout to the world how cursed his father was, but nothing came out. Momo, Todoroki-san, the black-haired girl didn't take long to hug him, stopping his anger and causing confusion in him. You're not your father. You're not an extension of him or a puppet. You're Todoroki Shoto, a very lonely boy who needs a hug and a friend. She spoke calmly while stroking his hair, and that friend is here to help and advise you. Shoto, eh? The two-toned boy didn't know what to do, but he felt comfortable, so he reciprocated the hug. Thank you, Yaoyorozu. What both didn't know was that someone had been listening for a while. Izuku, one less thing to do, he smiled bitterly, holding back the urge to cry. Calm down, Izuku, you knew this would happen. You don't have to cry. A tear came out without him being able to stop it. They will be happy. We will make sure those three don't cause any harm, and the world will be saved. With renewed strength and a bit of rest, the two-toned boy and the black-haired girl left the infirmary. Not much had happened in their absence. Ida defeating Ibura was the only event, and they just had to thaw and remove the ice in the stadium. Of course, the reaction to both of them arriving together didn't take long to come. Mina expected Izuku to say something or make a scene, but no, he just stood there eating something with Ochako. Momo, it's my turn. She stood up with excitement and calmly walked towards the exit, creating tension between the two-toned and green-haired individuals. Izuku, is something wrong, Todoroki? He said, looking at the screen, hoping to see his friend's progress. Shoto, you were right, was all he said, focusing on the fight. He would support his new friend, if he could even consider Momo as that. In the combat arena, both girls had a smile on their faces. Mina was excited to fight against her friend, while Momo was still amazed to be in front of her friend when it shouldn't have happened. Midnight, are you ready, girls? Both nodded with excitement. Well then, begin. Instantly, Mina started sliding her acid over the ground, while Momo ran to the other side of the field with an idea in mind. Mina's acid could vary as she pleased, with the potential to easily melt steel and even titanium in the future if she set her mind to it. At the same time, she had a lot of mobility and agility. The idea was simple: stop her and force her to retreat to win. Of course, the theory sounded good, but putting it into practice changed things. The pink-haired girl moved a lot, and at the slightest step from Momo, she changed direction, throwing not very strong acid at her friend. She didn't want to cause her terrible harm, she was just very annoying. So, things changed for Momo, who moved on to her second plan, creating a couple of flash grenades and a gas mask. Throwing the grenades, Mina tried to dodge and move away from what she thought contained some kind of gas, not knowing they were flash grenades. She was blinded long enough for Momo to get close enough to tie her with a rope that she had secretly prepared. Midnight, Mina has been immobilized. Yaoyorozu wins. The excitement echoed as Mina pouted at her friend for her defeat. Mina, Momo, could you, the pink-haired girl tried to move to make herself understood. Momo, I'm sorry, Mina-san. It's what I came up with to defeat you. She approached with a blade and cut the ropes holding her friend. With that, they went to the first row, where they were welcomed by their friends. On one side, Toru and Kirishima praised Mina for doing well by staying away from Momo, and on the other, Shoto, guided by Izuku, tried to be more expressive with his new friend, but it still felt uncomfortable for him to interact with people in what is considered a normal way. Step by step, as Midoriya said. Izuku, you know what comes next is the hard part, right? The freckled one murmured to his friend, who was drinking a soda. Momo, beating Bakugo, she sighed, looking at the stadium. The match was about to begin. I have an idea. Izuku, you're going to let me face him, aren't you? The black-haired girl sipped her soda and looked away indignantly from her friend. Momo, you know, sometimes I hate that you know me so well. She spoke angrily to her friend. Izuku, you're like an open book to me, Momo. We've been through a lot together. The freckled one leaned back, wanting to take a nap. Sometimes, I really hate you. The resistance battle was obviously won by Bakugo. At that time, Kirishima had a limited use of his quirk, and he wouldn't see a significant improvement until the events at the camp. With that fight decided, they gave some time for the participants to rest. Momo quickly grabbed the fire and ice popsicle for a snack, claiming it was to teach Todoroki some things. Meanwhile, Izuku stayed in the stands, looking towards the arena. There weren't many people in the stadium, and he could already see the outcome of his battle against Ida, who efficiently won against Ibara by swiftly taking her to the exit. Midoriya, Ida entered quite tense. His companion had shown strength and speed, and he couldn't think of a way to win. Izuku, what do you need, Ida? He asked without looking. It was clear he would ask for something. Ida, I just want a fair competition for both of us, none of holding back your power like you did with Todoroki. He spoke angrily about Izuku's previous fight with the freckled guy. Izuku, don't worry, I just wanted to play a bit with him. I can't stand when he holds back so much, he yawned, quite tired from the day. Our battle will be fair, rest assured. Izuku headed to the cafeteria. He was very hungry and couldn't wait until after beating the speedster. On arrival, he found Momo and Todoroki chatting. It seemed like the raven-haired girl wanted to advance quickly with her future fiancé. Sighing, he went to an isolated area to eat a sandwich. Seeing that smile on his friend made him happy and irritated at the same time. This situation made him uncomfortable and jealous, for no reason. They were literally the perfect couple that melted everyone with their cuteness and made one believe that love truly existed. Momo, have you stopped murmuring nonsense, Izuku? His friend had been trying to get him out of his mental madness after finishing his meal with Shoto. Izuku, will you bother me if I continue? The raven-haired girl smiled innocently. Fine, I stopped murmuring. Izuku got up, threw the trash in its proper place. How much time has passed? Momo, it's time for you to go and fight. Izuku just stretched and slowly went towards his match. Good luck. Izuku, yeah, whatever you say. He was more asleep than awake at that moment. Playing video games until 3 in the morning was still not a good idea. He arrived a bit late, making his opponent angry, who couldn't stand his companion's attitude throughout the festival. In the festival so far, Izuku only showed one thing, boredom. From the moment he arrived until his toughest fight against Todoroki, he demonstrated boredom, which was a bit puzzling and confusing as to why. Midnight, are both ready? Both nodded, Ida slightly more serious than the green-haired guy. Begin. Immediately, Ida ran to implement his only plan, to grab Izuku and take him out of the arena, simple and effective so far. Midoriya demonstrated speed, and Ida honestly believed he wasn't as fast as him. In less than half a second when he was close to Izuku, he disappeared, reappearing behind the blue-haired guy, kicking his back and almost knocking him out of the arena. It seemed he had underestimated his companion in terms of speed. He had to have a different approach. Izuku, I hope that's not all you've got, Ida. Izuku approached the blue-haired guy slowly, not wanting it to be so easy to defeat him. Ida, you have no idea, Midoriya. He got up, eager to win. His engines emitted fire, and he started running, still waiting for the right moment to use his best card. Izuku, alright. Izuku stepped back, taking off his gym shirt, leaving only a tight white one on his chest. The screams of some girls could be heard, and beside him, Midnight licked her lips. Come, bull, he encouraged his companion, who rushed towards Izuku. The green-haired guy dodged him at the last minute, like a bullfighter. Oh! Ida, don't play like this. The blue-haired guy went against Izuku again, who did the same. This is not a game. Izuku, seriously, isn't it a game? Isn't a festival something to enjoy and have fun? The blue-haired guy stood still for a second, analyzing what he said. Why do you care so much? It's for everyone to have fun. Why so serious? Ida, it's our chance to show the world what we are capable of. Did you hear Aizawa-sensei? Our opportunity to attract hero agencies for internships. His exhaust pipes emitted flames, and he ran again at high speed. Izuku, and is that an excuse not to have fun? Izuku avoided the blue-haired guy again, who didn't gauge his speed this time and went outside the bounds. Midnight, Ida is out, victory for Midoriya-kun, declared the mature heroine, eyeing her student. Izuku, as I said, Ida, this is a game and, at the same time, not. How I take it shouldn't interfere with your life or your fight. He put his shirt back on, causing sighs of disappointment from the girls. He walked slowly towards the exit, ignoring Ida's complaints. What followed would be very stressful and quite exhausting. It was partly why he didn't exert much effort. He needed all the strength possible to humiliate Bakugo again. Just thinking about Bakugo's angry face after losing drained all the anger from his body. Momo, you're having a lot of fun, aren't you? His friend arrived with an adorable pout, looking at the carefree Izuku. Izuku, detecting jealousy in your voice? He teased, making the raven-haired girl turn tomato red for his amusement. Momo, fool, she muttered, not admitting to the green-haired guy, who knew what was going on. I worry that nothing will happen to you, and you make fun of me. Izuku, whatever you say. You don't even believe it yourself, Momo. The green-haired guy walked alongside her, leaving the annoyed raven-haired girl behind. You should go and prepare, don't you think? Momo, With a pout, she followed her friend, still mad at what he did. Izuku, stop getting mad like that and admit that you were jealous. He teased, causing Momo to turn away, refusing to speak to him. Well, that's how it's going to be. The green-haired guy approached his friend slowly, grabbing her waist and bringing her close. Momo, Izuku? Her nerves surfaced, and she blushed, looking at Izuku. Izuku, yes? He whispered near her lips, causing more nervousness in his friend. Momo, her strength was about to leave her, giving in to whatever they were doing. Izuku, there's not much time left, and he approached Momo's ear, kissing her cheek. You have to get ready. With that, he left, leaving the blushing and slightly angry raven-haired girl behind. Momo went to her designated spot, needing to calm down and focus on what was happening. She had to avoid Bakugo and make him fight against Izuku, now with an extra reason in her mind. It wasn't pleasant that he played with her like that. She entered the stadium amid deafening cheers, looking at Bakugo, who, as usual, seemed angry for some reason she didn't know. Honestly, at this point, she doubted the mental qualities of the explosive blonde. Midnight, Bakugo ready? The blonde looked intensely at his romantic interest. It was stupid that both were fighting. I'll take that as a yes. Yaoyorozu-chan, are you ready? The raven-haired girl nodded, looking towards Class 1A's stand. Her friend's smile made her tense for a moment. Begin. Bakugo walked towards Momo with a goal in mind, throwing so many explosions that it would be easy to take her out. Momo didn't move, she just dodged the blonde once he got close and walked towards her teacher. Momo, I give up. With that, she left the arena, surprising everyone. Bakugo was really angry, more than usual. His plan was simple for the showdown against Sweet Momo, just beat her and then help her get to the infirmary. On the way, he'd convince her it was a better option than being with Deku and Invariano, who seemed quite close in a short time. Just another idiot trying to be with her when she should only be with the best hero and person in the world, Bakugo Katsuki. But, once again, his plans to be with the black-haired girl didn't work. Nothing had worked since he was 4 years old, and he couldn't stand seeing her so close to someone like Deku. Years of clever ideas without success. Every time he tried something, she always refused. It was stressful, but Bakugo was stubborn about what he liked. He would keep trying until she agreed to be with him. Izuku, I understand. Sorry for bothering you. Came a voice near explosive blonde Bakugo. Curious, he went to see what was happening. To his surprise, Deku and Momo were there, the black-haired girl pulling Deku's cheeks forcefully. You shouldn't play like this before something important, dummy. Dummy. Dummy, scolded Momo, playing with Deku's cheeks, who did nothing to stop her. Don't ever play like that. I already apologized, said the pained Deku with red cheeks. You're cruel, he murmured, hurt, but Momo refused to look at him. Sighed the freckled one sadly before hugging her friend, unaware that Bakugo was nearby, listening to everything. Sorry, it was just an innocent joke, apologized Momo, who remained angry with her friend. Fool, could be heard before the black-haired girl took the freckled one like a plushie. Is this for real? Asked her friend, smiling like a child, causing the green-haired one to sigh, resigned to being Momo's plushie. With more anger, Bakugo left. Now he had more reasons to explode Deku's face and his stupid smile. What does Invariano have that Katsuki doesn't? What does he have that Katsuki doesn't? No matter how much he thought about it, Bakugo is the best choice, always has been. Everyone believes it, yet Deku is with her, the only person Bakugo wants to love. He sat down to rest before the final showdown. Even today, he showed his superiority over Deku. His battles were by far the best of the day. First against the round face, which pushed him to use his strongest explosion but was impressive enough to convince everyone of Katsuki's greatness. Then against the shit hair, he won again with incredible force, surely convincing All Might to focus on him instead of always on Deku. It was time to show how far above Deku he was. All right. The time for the final battle has come, shouted Present Mike in the stadium. Two fighters from the same class, with strength difficult to surpass. On one side, the explosive power of Class A, unparalleled destructive force. Bakugo Katsuki. Bakugo came out with a serious expression. It seemed he wouldn't have the slightest bit of mercy for his enemy or anyone in his way. On the other side, the invincible of this festival, strength and speed in perfect balance. Midoriya Izuku. Present Mike announced, and Deku came out under the excitement and expectant gazes of the crowd. All right, same rules as always. Are both of you ready? Midnight asked, and the enemies nodded, ready for the battle. All right, without further ado. Begin. Instantly, the blonde launched himself upward with his explosions, planning to go all out from the beginning and annihilate Deku with his most powerful attack. Reaching the desired height, he glanced at Momo, hoping she would realize how powerful he was. However, she was busy chatting with the girl with headphones. Unable to do anything else, he looked at Deku, who was strangely smiling arrogantly. Bakugo propelled himself downward, releasing explosions around him, creating a tornado of ash, dust, and fire concentrated on finishing off Deku and making him leave UA. A second later, the smoke cleared. Deku had effortlessly caught both hands of his opponent, leaving professional heroes surprised. With a single move, he had stopped the dangerous attack, harmful to both him and those close to the explosion. Deku released Bakugo's hands and, with a kick, sent him crashing into the opposite wall, causing him to faint. The last thing Bakugo saw before falling was Deku and a gaze filled with hatred. Midnight, Bakugo has fallen. Midoriya wins. A minute of silence followed as people tried to understand what had happened. Whoever had shattered so much debris with a single blow and overpowered someone who could withstand explosions had defeated Bakugo with a single hit. Reactions were delayed, and it wasn't until Deku left the scene that they seemed to react. Even Mike didn't have much to say, consumed by fear of Class A, and he doubted his friend's teaching methods. Of course, this didn't overshadow what was happening elsewhere in Japan. The hero Ingenium fell into Stain's hands again, causing Ida to leave the scene to be with his brother. Another change in the timeline was on the horizon. After a while, the winners of the festival were declared, with Izuku at the forefront, followed by Bakugo, who again had to be restrained like a rabid dog. Upon waking up and realizing he had lost, Bakugo couldn't believe it and tried to attack Izuku, only to be stopped by Midnight. In third place was Momo, a bit nervous but mostly happy to have come this far. All Might appeared again with medals in hand, offering words of encouragement to each winner. With Bakugo, he struggled again to put the second place medal on him, a lose-lose situation. All Might, Midoriya, I'm very proud of what you've achieved, he whispered as he hugged him and gave him the medal. Thank you, All Might, replied Izuku, bowing with a smile similar to his master's. Meanwhile, Bakugo tried to explode Deku's face. It was the most surprising sports festival in a long time. Not even the third-year promises managed to excite the heroes as much. They didn't waste time and quickly offered internships to the most promising students from both classes. Due to their outstanding performance, the Yaoyorozu and Midoriya families went to a luxurious restaurant to celebrate. Inko was initially hesitant, but the Yaorozas were stubborn and convincing. Later, the green-haired girl teased her husband with food to make him return home faster. Momo said, well, Mom and Dad are already asleep, just like Inko-san, relaxing on the sofa. It was time to find out what happened with Stain. Izuku added, Toga fell asleep after 3 hours of playing, standing in front of her. Both of them needed better control over villains. All right, call him, Momo instructed. Izuku nodded, stood up, and looked toward the door leading to the Yaoyorozu's large garden. "Izuku-sama, we need to talk," he said loudly, causing a dark portal to open. From it emerged Shirakumo, believed to be dead, his face uncovered, and his once cloudy hair now completely black. "If you may, Izuku-sama," Shirakumo spoke calmly. It was time to discuss all for one's plans. The room in the Yaoyorozu mansion was pretty cold despite the night not being too chilly. The time-traveling adventurers were facing Shigaraki Tomura's plan revelation. Their plan needed more strength to be visible, and both aimed to sow enough doubt in Stain's ideals to deter various people from joining the League of Villains. It won't affect much since Shigaraki got the idea of having Bakugo on his side. "Momo, well, do you know where you're going for the internships?" she asked her friend, who was looking seriously at Shirakumo. "What are you doing?" "Izuku, I'm trying to find the best way to free him from the mind control he's under." He narrowed his eyes at the cloud guy, who kept a vacant stare. "Momo, I thought you had already done that." The black-haired girl looked at her friend, who was pulling the earlobes of the cloud-haired guy. "Izuku, I reprogrammed him, which is different." He looked at Shirakumo with no signs of response. Order A-113 made to forget his past and never return to the heroes, and Order 66 in case Shimura Tenko goes out of control, eliminate him and go to his master. If said simultaneously, it will enter a strange loop and go blank. "Momo, is that what they did when they got Garaki to talk?" The freckled guy nodded. "Izuku, according to Aizawa-sensei, when they first met after his capture, they managed to slightly damage the programming by making Shirakumo remember who he was. Still, quickly, Order A-113 overrode everything, and he became Kurogiri again." He explained while pulling the cloud-haired guy's cheeks. "Momo, how did they bring him back to normal?" The black-haired girl approached the freckled guy, curious about what he would do. "Izuku, Nezu solved it. Before sacrificing himself to destroy UA, we had to treat him for post-traumatic stress disorder while he was in his mind, stopping all Kurogiri's ideas." He explained to his friend, who was analyzing the puppet butler. "Momo, how long will it take to cure him?" The freckled guy thought for a while, exchanging glances between the black-haired girl and the cloud guy. "Izuku, a couple of months, hopefully before the camp." The black-haired girl nodded with hope, believing in the green-haired guy and knowing he would succeed. "Momo, well, since we're here," she pulled out a hidden bottle of wine and showed it to her friend. "We haven't properly celebrated our triumph yet," she said with a bright smile. "Izuku, I'm sorry, Momo, but no. I know how you get when you're drunk, and it's more than likely that you'll reveal unnecessary information to everyone." The freckled guy snatched the bottle, causing a pout of indignation from his friend. "Besides, you're still too young to start drinking alcohol." "Momo, it's not fair," she said with a pout. "When we won somewhere in the war, you let me take 2 bottles. Izuku, that's in the future, this is now." The freckled guy left the bottle aside, angering the black-haired girl. "Momo, why are you always right?" Resigned, she sat next to her friend with an idea in mind. "Izuku, I don't always have the right answer, and you know it." The freckled guy looked at her for a moment, and the black-haired girl took advantage of it to use the dreaded abandoned puppy look. "Momo. Momo, please, Izuku. Don't be like this." She continued with her hopeful gaze, making the freckled guy sigh. "Izuku, just 1 glass." The black-haired girl smiled again at her imminent victory against the freckled guy. "Sometimes you're annoying." That night, after a couple of hours, both friends ended up sleeping embraced on the floor of the room. Shirakumo was ordered to leave after the 3rd glass. Fortunately, Izuku was more focused on preventing his friend from drinking too much than anything else. When Inko and Momo's parents found them, they didn't hesitate to take many photos of the cute couple of young people. The following week, their teacher proudly presented the statistics on the festival, with curiosity about the freckled guy. The class had a good performance, except for one student who was on thin ice. If he did anything wrong in these days, he would be immediately expelled from the hero course. "Mineta, it must be a joke," he cried silently, seeing that he was the worst in the class. Even the invisible girl turned out much better than him. "Kaminari, sorry, buddy, you should have tried harder." The spiky-haired guy looked at him with fear in his eyes. "Aizawa, well, the other thing is that next week is the internships. Your festival efforts are reflected in the number of agencies that have sent applications at this moment." He turned to write the quantity of each student, except one. "Mineta, as already known, is on thin ice, and based on his poor performance, he will undergo an exam that will re-evaluate his stay here at UA. Today, we have something important to do, and since I'm not the best at this, Midnight entered the classroom with a coquettish look and a mischievous smile, stealing everyone's attention. Midnight, today, my dears, we're going to choose your hero names, one of the most important things in your hero career, what you'll be easily recognized by. Excitement filled the class, and murmurs began to sound. You'll have time to think. I hope to hear great ideas because if not, you'll have to think of another name. The class began, and almost everyone had a basic idea of their hero names, except for Izuku, who was stressed. He didn't want to carry the name Deku again. That hero was left behind when the war began to make way for General Midoriya. He had to change the idea. Izuku, He stared at his desk, unsure of how to do this. Maybe, with a smile, he quickly wrote before raising his hand and requesting a turn to show his idea. Everyone looked at the freckled guy, not quite understanding why that name. Momo, on the other hand, looked at him surprised, and a small smile adorned her face. Flashback. Momo used to visit the Midoriya family's house a lot. She was a close friend of Izuku's wife, and since they met, they were quite close. When she found out about what was happening, she went to see her two friends. She had been on such a long mission that she didn't even notice when it happened, and here she was chatting with Izuku while his wife was fixing some things in the room. Momo, spark hope? She looked at her friend, who wore the happiest smile she had ever seen. Izuku, yes. I think it's a good hero name for me. It has its reasons given what happened and how we met. I think it's a good idea. Momo, I don't know. Your current hero name is the culmination of who you are and everything you've been through. Deku is, she tried to continue, but her friend stopped her. Izuku, I believe that too. It's not that I dislike the name, it's just that everyone already knows me as Deku. I don't think people will get used to that. So, I decided something. He lovingly held a baby in a crib next to him, lifting her with care. If she becomes a hero, she can choose that name. The baby opened her eyes, displaying that identical color to her father's. What do you think? The girl looked at her father and went back to sleep. Momo, PFFF ha ha ha, the black-haired girl started laughing at the father-daughter interaction. End of flashback. Midnight, Yaoyorozu-chan? The black-haired girl snapped back, looking at her teacher and classmates who were curious about how she got lost in her thoughts. Momo, yes? She said with a nervous touch. Midnight, it's your turn. The black-haired girl nodded and walked in front of the class, revealing her hero name, Kreechi. The class was ending, and, as usual, Bakugo's name ideas were rejected. Everything sounded too much like a villain or serial killer, and Midnight wasn't convinced. Ida insisted on using his own name instead of the inherited one, showing a desire for revenge. However, this time he had to be more clever in his journey of hatred. Ida, what do you mean I can't go, Aizawa-sensei? He shouted at his teacher, who was busy with internship papers. Aizawa, Hasu was already chosen by someone else, Ida. Change the city if you want to participate. Ida, but, sensei, Aizawa looked stressed, and Ida went silent. Who is it? Aizawa, why? Aizawa thought about what to say without sounding suspicious. Ida, I want to go there, it's where my brother works, and I'd like to learn from the place when it's time for me to inherit the agency. Aizawa wasn't entirely convinced, but he had work to do and not enough patience for this. Aizawa, talk to Midoriya, if you can convince him to change his site, you'll go. Otherwise, you'll have to think of another option. Ida nodded and left the teacher's room quickly. What a nuisance. Ida walked around the UA complex, opting for a fast pace. After a while, he found Midoriya with Uraka, Yaoyorozu, Jiro, and Todoroki, eating and chatting on the roof. Ida, Midoriya, he shouted with a serious expression, and Midoriya, tired, looked at him. Midoriya, yes, Ida? Ida approached mechanically, not knowing what was happening. Ida, I need to talk seriously in private. He waited for Midoriya's response, who looked at him. Midoriya, this is about the Hasu thing, right? Ida nodded seriously, I'm not changing the location. Ida, but, Midoriya stopped him to let him explain. Midoriya, I understand it's the area your brother, Ingenium, protects, and where he fell to the hero killer stain. Is that why you want to go there? A desire for revenge for what happened to your brother? Ida, that's not what, Midoriya interrupted him with a punch. Midoriya, you're thinking with a hot head, seeking revenge without knowing what you're up against. Tell me, Ida, if he could handle your brother, who is much stronger than you, what are you supposed to do? You'll just be another victim of the killer, and your brother will be disappointed and sad for losing someone he cares about. Ida clenched his fists. Ida, you don't understand anything, He grabbed Midoriya by the collar, trying to be more severe. You don't know what it's like to lose someone. You don't know what. He didn't finish as Midoriya hit him, taking his breath away. Midoriya, what nonsense are you saying? He shouted angrily at Ida, you haven't lost anyone. Your brother is still alive, understood? Alive. And instead of being happy, you're seeking your own death at the hands of a professional killer? Ida wanted to respond but didn't know how. You're not being rational and going against the rules just for a stupid whim like revenge. Ida, but, Midoriya hardened his gaze, making Ida tremble with helplessness. Midoriya, but nothing. I'll go to Hasu, you go somewhere else. Is that clear? Midoriya's eyes glowed, frightening Ida, who said nothing. That's how I like it. He turned and joined his friends, who looked shocked at Midoriya. Uraka, don't you think you went a bit too far? Midoriya shook his head. Midoriya, if I don't make him understand, he'll go and get himself killed. We're still students, far from being professionals. He said, continuing with his meal. So the week passed with Ida being too insistent with the freckled one who paid him no attention. He was more focused on helping calm the nerves of his friends who were about to embark on a fun and fruitful adventure for their hero training. In the end, Ida couldn't go to the internship since he didn't choose any hero, so he would be under the supervision of UA teachers, causing his anger. He should be where Midoriya was, catching the hero killer. Manual, thank you for choosing our agency, Midoriya-san. The hero stood in front of his new disciple, who smiled. Izuku, it's an opportunity among many, we have to make good use of them. The freckled one replied, following the hero through the streets. Manual, I was surprised that you chose here. We really thought you'd pick one of the top heroes or someone more relevant. Izuku, I'm not very interested in fame or how I'm perceived. I just want to save people and help those in need. With you, I feel like I can learn to reach the goal. The assigned hero nodded at his honorable words. People seemed tense. Manual, oh, yes, he became uncomfortable mentioning that. A wave of attacks on heroes recently reached the city, and they're scared. They hope we catch the villain. That's why patrols have doubled, and we are more vigilant about what might happen. The freckled one nodded, following his guide. Izuku, what exactly do I have to do here? He asked, trained at the agency. Manual, today, I'll show you where to sleep, the facilities, along with the city map and the patrols we'll do together. I apologize for putting you directly on patrol, but we need all the help we can get. The freckled one smiled, excited to do something he hadn't done in decades. Izuku, I'm glad to be of help for a change. What are my limitations? Because I understand that I won't be allowed to fight in the front line. The hero laughed at the cleverness of his new intern. Manual, for now, you'll be support. I need you close in case of an emergency to evacuate civilians if necessary and be ready to call for backup if not. The freckled one nodded, and the hero smiled. Of course, Ida wasn't going to sit idle. He took his armor and, at night, went secretly to Hasu. He had a couple of hours to find the hero killer and bring him to justice. His brother would be avenged no matter what. However, he didn't account for a slight detail. Both day and night, the streets were being watched by heroes on patrol. He tried to go to places where the killer might be, but luck wasn't on his side. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Another day and another night with the same result, the hero killer stain was nowhere to be found. At least, Izuku enjoyed watching the heroes do their work and acted as reinforcement in some incidents, mainly accidents. The city was very peaceful, for which he was grateful. The worst was yet to come the next night, so with minimal preparation, he was ready for a talk with Stain. He didn't want to start a fight that he could easily avoid. Finally, the middle of the week had arrived, and it was the time for the villains to act. The days of waiting were extremely boring for Izuku because, as an intern, he wasn't allowed to do much. He just had to support the assigned hero. During this time, he got to know Ida Tensei, a good man who wasn't as strict as his brother. He appeared strong in this serious situation, not seeming to care about not being able to walk again, at least that's how it looked. The day was calm, with few accidents, which was the norm in the city. The place was peaceful and secure, two words Izuku hadn't heard in relation to a city for a long time, cursed traumas from the future past. As night fell, alarms sounded, and heroes rushed out to defend the city from three Nomus, while also preventing Endeavor from incinerating everything in his heroics. There was still a long way for him to come to his senses and realize how foolish he was. Izuku, Manual, I heard something in an alley. May I go check, sir? He said to his hero boss, who was busy helping people. The fact that the green-haired boy was there made things easier. Manual, try not to take long, and if it's a Nomu, run, he shouted his orders, and the freckled boy ran, getting lost in the streets, unaware that he was being followed by his mentor's mentor. Gran Torino was surprised when All Might refused his help to train the kid who was supposed to be his successor. He knew how foolish that blonde man was, always relying on his muscles over his brain. It was clear that the boy was a genius in using one for all, because if he wasn't, it would be impossible for him to use that quirk so well. So, he investigated the kid and got a couple of surprises. The boy was quirkless until just under a year ago, with good grades that seemed to predict the future given how well he did. Even in elementary school, he stood out as a genius, and yet they didn't advance him a grade. There were records of the boy fighting guys much bigger and stronger than him, defeating them all. Midoriya Izuku was so strange that when Gran Torino found out where he went, he didn't hesitate to spy on him. Of course, Izuku was aware that someone was following him, but he didn't pay much attention to it. He was more focused on his current task, taking quick walks to reach and save the hero native from his imminent death at the hands of the bloodthirsty killer. Stain, you will be another sacrifice for a new society. As a cruel twist of fate, Ida was there in his armor, and native stood beside him, eyes filled with fear at the sight of a child facing death. Izuku muttered, "Idiot," before kicking the assassin, who didn't see the blow coming. Stain, another one? He was getting tired of these self-proclaimed heroes who couldn't just die for the greater good. Izuku, not exactly. He pointed his finger at the shocked Ida. You're too foolish to come here. As I told you, you'd die if you came. Without letting him respond, Izuku's nail extended to touch Ida's forehead, and he instantly fell asleep. Now you. Another nail extended, reaching native, also putting the professional hero to sleep. Now, without looking, he stopped every knife Stain sent, surprising the assassin. Hello, Stain. Stain, who are you? The freckled boy just sat on the ground, further confusing the assassin. Izuku, I'm a student training to be a hero. He spoke calmly. The assassin eyed him cautiously, appearances could be deceiving. Stain, another fake hero, right? He approached, placing the edge of his sword on the freckled boy's forehead, who didn't flinch. Why should I spare you? Izuku, believe me, nothing would make me happier than you piercing my skull right now. But I still have things to do, and surely Mom, Dad, and Toga would cry for me, and I don't want them to cry again. He answered truthfully, surprising the assassin. Is it so hard to talk instead of killing unnecessarily? Stain, He sheathed his weapon and sat in front of Izuku, becoming serious as he noticed something. Your eyes. Izuku, is there something wrong with them? Stain, your gaze, the hatred in it, the desire for death, not just yours but of others. What drives a kid to kill in a way that his eyes only reflect death? Izuku, one who lost everything because of idiots who never got what they deserved and forced me to do what was necessary. He replied harshly, not liking to talk about it, mainly because it brings back memories of bad times. Stain, you don't seem like someone who kills without hesitation. The freckled boy shrugged, uninterested. What do you want, kid? Izuku, details of your meeting with Shigaraki Tomura. The assassin looked surprised before going against him, putting his sword against Izuku's neck, who remained as unmoved as at the beginning. Stain, what do you have to do with them? Were you sent to recruit me? His paranoia was unique to Izuku. Izuku, not at all. I have someone working for me as a mole, and he's very good at his job. I just want to know something about that guy. The assassin hardened his gaze at the green-haired boy, who maintained his usual dead stare. Stain, what? He sheathed his sword, allowing the freckled boy to speak. Izuku, how insane did he seem? The assassin didn't understand, he looked as crazy as a crazy person could be. I mean, how desperate did he look? Stain, just a kid throwing a tantrum, brave enough to kill but does it indiscriminately without any desire or purpose. It sickens me. He responded with hatred. Izuku, and the master he has? Another surprise for the assassin. How controlled is he? Stain, I would say very controlled, a puppet in the hands of his perfect master. The freckled boy nodded, everything was going according to plan, not raising suspicions about All for One. Izuku, that's all. Thanks for saying it, and sorry for what I'm about to do. The freckled boy hit the villain, who crashed into a wall and passed out instantly. One less, he looked at the hero and the motorhead guy, nodding to himself. Yeah, this is going to take a while. With great speed, he captured Stain and then pulled Ida out of the alley, followed by Native. The effect of that quirk wouldn't last much longer, so he had to make it look like it had been the greatest battle of his life. He broke the stairs there, messed up everything, and of course, injured himself with Stain's weapons. Then, he sent a message to all his classmates, waiting for Shoto. When both Endeavor and his son arrived, they were surprised to see the freckled boy in bad shape with the hero killer defeated. Native and Ida were waking up beside him. Manuel went to check on his intern, all under the watchful eyes of Gran Torino, who had been present throughout the entire conversation between the future hero and the assassin. There were many things to explain. The hospital beds have always been constant in Izuku's life. He has been in many throughout his life, either because of his own fault or someone else's. He learned how comfortable they can be if given the chance. The discomfort wasn't with the beds, it was with whom he shared the room. Ida looked at him with contained anger. Since he woke up, he tried to go against Izuku, realizing that he was immobilized, or rather, casted. Stain almost left him without his right arm, and the left one was handcuffed to his bed. He could only glare and insult the freckled one for doing this. When he ran out of curses or bad words, he simply stared at him as if he were the greatest evil in the world. Manuel, Midoriya, the hero entered quickly with Endeavor, Shoto, and the police chief Tsurugame Kenji behind them. How are you? Are you okay? Izuku, completely Manuel, it's nothing, a few days in the hospital won't fix. He spoke lying down with a friendly smile. Kenji, I'm glad to hear that, young man. The little dog moved his nose, sniffing the air. Since you're okay, I'd like to clarify the events that led you to Stain. Izuku, understood. With a serious expression, he looked partially into nothing to add drama to his story. When we were called to help with the MOMO issue, I heard a sound of pain coming from an alley. I wasn't sure what it could be, so asking for permission from my hero in charge, I went to investigate and found the scene. He looked at Ida, who challenged him with his gaze. Stain was raising his sword to eliminate the present, Ida Tenya. Fortunately, I arrived to stop him. Unfortunately, the wounded one ended up fainting from overexertion, and beside him, Native barely stayed alive. Endeavor, how did you manage to defeat him? It sounded a bit unreal that a simple child defeated one of the greatest killers today, he didn't believe it. Izuku, with the only thing I could think of, playing dirty. The others waited for him to continue his explanation. Facing him, I could see how he used the terrain to his advantage. A narrow place like an alley gives him a lot of mobility, so I used that to my advantage by throwing things to hinder his jumps and keeping the focus on avoiding as much as possible and attacking if there were opportunities. Kenji, why did it take you so long to report the situation? The freckled one extended his arm to the side, showing his completely broken phone. Izuku, I had to act quickly if I wanted to save Ida and Native. Besides, with Stain nearby and his blades and sword, I couldn't afford to be precise. So, I just sent my location to all my contacts, hoping someone was close enough to realize what was happening. He looked at Shoto with a smile. And I wasn't wrong. Shoto, your messages are confusing, Midoriya. The freckled one shrugged with disinterest. Kenji, well, that explains something now. He turned to look at Ida, who was staring at his bed, unwilling to see anyone else. Can you explain what you were doing there, young Ida? I understand that your internships are at UA, so it's far from there. Ida, he squeezed the sheets under his hand, completely angry with Stain, himself, and Midoriya as well. Manuel, it was for Tensei, right? The one with glasses didn't say anything, surprised that the hero recognized him. He talks a lot about you, about how upright you are and how proud he is of you. Look, Manuel, Tensei surpassed my record, he'll surely be a great hero, he imitated his friend and colleague, making Tenya look bad. Kenji, so, a revenge story. He thought for a moment and looked at the heroes. Manuel, did you give Midoriya permission to use his quirk? Manuel, only if it was strictly necessary, like to survive an attack. The freckled one smiled innocently, expecting his punishment. Kenji, do you understand the position this puts you in, young Midoriya? The green-haired boy nodded. And young Ida, the one with glasses, didn't look, completely paralyzed by what might happen. Your vigilante actions will be punished. Don't think that being a hero's brother will make you different, understood? The one with glasses remained silent. Endeavor, they're talking to you, brat. With his cold gaze, he made the engine guy tense, who nodded slightly. Kenji, young Midoriya, the right thing would be to sanction your actions for using your quirk outside the orders of your supervising hero. However, considering the wrong he did, his heroic actions also weigh in. So, he won't be punished this time. And for obvious reasons, the capture of Stain will be credited to Endeavor. Is that clear? The freckled one nodded in agreement. Izuku, it's not like I cared anyway. Whoever gets the credit doesn't matter. The important thing is that Stain was captured, and that's good enough. The freckled one relaxed in his place, a job well done. Shoto, by the way, Midoriya, Yaoyorozu called me. The green-haired one broke into a cold sweat. She said she would come as fast as possible, and I don't know if it's just me, but she didn't sound very happy. Izuku, God, why have you forsaken me? With that thought, he prepared to sleep, not without one last warning. Kenji, by the way, young Midoriya, a retired hero wants to see you. With that, he left the hospital room, as did Endeavor, who still couldn't believe that a kid could handle someone like Stain. Shoto, on the other hand, had the decency to say goodbye. Izuku, and enter in 3, 2, 1, he pointed to the window, confusing Ida, who was quite stunned by the events. Gran Torino, how did you know, kid? From the window, the old man entered, eating his precious candies. Izuku, I'm not as stupid as I seem, Gran Torino. Were you the one following me last night, right? The old man chuckled, hoping that Toshinori's successor would be dumber than the freckled one demonstrated. Gran Torino, it's true, and I was surprised when you managed with a kick what Todoroki's matchstick head wouldn't. He jumped onto the bed, examining the wounds of the freckled one. Ida, with a kick? Before registering anything in his head, he fell asleep due to the same thing as the night before. Gran Torino, you have an interesting quirk, kid. But I have to ask, why? The freckled one looked at him, pretending not to know anything. Why fake an elaborate battle that never happened? Izuku, to tell you, I have to ask something, Gran Torino. He pondered for a second, not sure if it would be a good idea. Do you believe in time travel? The old man raised an eyebrow, not expecting anything. On the other side of the city, at Gang Orca's agency, the black-haired girl sighed with perfectly contained anger. She knew her friend would do something completely necessary and, at the same time, stupid. He could do things differently and have a better, more optimal result, but no, the young master had to do things his way. She understood that he wanted to talk to Stain and keep Tenko under control, waiting for his plan to start. And by the way things were going, it seemed he had to. Momo had to achieve 2 things. Firstly, send Kaminari to the general courses. Secondly, and more complicated now that the sports festival had passed, she had to get Bakugo out and away from the villains. With Mineta, the matter was already solved since it was impossible for him to pass that test. All of this had to be done before the camp, a moment that would begin with that fight between heroes and villains in which Izuku would leave as a vigilante to protect them all. Momo, Izuku, she entered with a seriousness that made the green-haired one fear. Izuku, God, it's me again, he murmured in fear of the black-haired girl who walked slowly towards him. Things went quite well for Izuku, except for Momo and Ochako scolding him when they found out about his friend's nonsense upon arriving at UA. Despite that, everything seemed to be going well in Momo's plan. Thanks to making Shinso stand out at the festival, he was now being considered for the hero course. Mineta left UA due to a problem with Midnight during his test, and Aizawa mentioned indecent behavior. 1 problem solved, 2 more to go, and the world would be saved. Izuku just had to achieve it before Bakugo got kidnapped, and All for One was defeated by All Might, a simple task. For now, it was better to focus on one thing at a time, getting Kaminari transferred to general courses. It might be unnecessary since Mineta is no longer there, but Momo was strict on this matter. No loose ends should remain, and there's still a chance things might happen with just the 2 of them. Fortunately, it was the best time of the year to get Kaminari out of the hero course, final exams. If Momo's memory served her right, he and some classmates would ask for her help with studying. Kaminari, please, ya Momo. You're my only hope. Pleaded the desperate blonde for the 8th time. Who would have thought being a hero required so much knowledge? Momo, I'm busy, Kaminari. My sister needs help with a project, and I'll be assisting her all week. With that, the blonde's hopes plummeted. It was the end. Kaminari, wait, you have a sister? Half the class looked at him strangely. Who didn't know the second heir of the Yaoyorozu family? Sero, dude, that was a bombshell. She's literally the second most famous girl after Yamomo. Kaminari, if she's so famous, why don't I know her, huh? With a genius look, he stared at the dark-haired guy, who couldn't believe such stupidity. Izuku, maybe because you're too idiotic to see beyond 2 big breasts, muttered loudly, causing anger in the blonde. Kaminari, shut up, he shouted at the freckled guy, who was getting ready to leave. Midoriya, my friend, the blonde approached the freckled guy, who saw his intentions. Izuku, no. Dead serious, he left the blonde stunned. His end was near. Ochako, that was a bit cruel, Midoriya-kun, commented his friend, ready to leave for home. Izuku, downplaying it, He left with the mochi girl following him. Kaminari, now it's over. I'm going to leave the hero course like Mineta. He sat in his chair, crying for not passing his test. Katsuki, shut up already. I'll help you. The statement stopped Momo, as well as many others present. They didn't expect this move from someone like Bakugo. Kaminari, really? The explosive nodded without looking. Thanks, Bakugo. You're saving my life. The explosive didn't pay attention, focused on maintaining a staring contest. Kyoka, I think his brain finally fried from too many explosions. She looked somewhat terrified at the blonde, thanking his savior 1,000 times. Momo, it's a pretty bad tactic to attract me, it seems. With a sigh, she left with her friend following her. Kyoka, huh? She looked at her friend, not believing much. I think you're too paranoid, ya Momo. Momo, he's been trying something with me for a long time. This is just another idea exactly like the one from a year ago, acting like a saint and helping someone selflessly to show how sweet and noble he is. She finished her explanation with a fake tone of tenderness. Kyoka, now that I think about it, how long have you known him? Momo, since I was 4, and believe me, he's always been this foolish. With nothing more to say, both went in Momo's limousine. Today, her best friend would meet the almighty and amazing Yaoyorozu Himiko. For those who still believe, the character's name is Himiko and not Toga. Toga is her last name. If you still don't believe it, I remind you that when she introduces herself in the anime, she says Toga Himiko and not the other way around. Following the same rule as with names, with the last name first and then the first name, it is quite clear that her name is Himiko and not Toga. On the other side, Bakugo smiled to himself. This was his last chance. He didn't want to throw more completely direct hints at the black-haired girl of his dreams. He was determined that if this didn't work to attract her, he would be more straightforward about what he wanted and ask her to be his girlfriend in every humanly possible way. Nobody could resist Katsuki Bakugo, and no matter how much Yaoyorozu denies it, Katsuki will win her heart. That's why, despite his impatience, he agreed to help Kaminari and Kirishima. Later, Mina and Sero joined, much to his annoyance. So, the plan changed, and now he had to organize a study session with his stupid classmates at his house. Of course, his mother was there to increase the explosive blonde's discontent. Mina, are you sure it's around here? She asked the redhead, who was the guide. Kirishima, pretty sure. Bakugo gave me a detailed map of where his house is. He pointed to his phone with an idiot-proof map in case Kaminari wanted to be the guide. Kaminari, I've never been around here. It's very peaceful. He looked around, plenty of open shops, a few heroes on patrol, and a sunny day. Sero, hey, guys. The black-haired guy drew the attention of his friends who waited for him to speak. Isn't that Midoriya? Mina, The group looked at the freckled guy, who was entering an alley with a smile. Kirishima, this is weird. With curiosity and wanting to help his friend in case something bad happened, he went into the alley followed by his friends. In the alley, Izuku walked calmly. Recently, he played with Kurogiri's mind, unleashing some strings that tied his mentality. He was close to recovering Shirakumo. It wasn't easy but quite entertaining. Taking Kurogiri to an unfamiliar place and making him do things outside his normal routine introduced new desires into his brain. At the same time, it made him do things that Shirakumo would have done, causing a mental awakening. This, combined with making him go through what seemed like dreams, created doubt in the Nomu's mind about reality and who he really is. Even if his memories were sealed, he could slowly release them. Today, he had awakened enough to teleport to a random location, easily discovered. Izuku, a rooftop no more than 2 blocks from home. He smiled to himself, analyzing how to climb. I could climb conventionally, but where's the fun in that? To his hidden companions, that phrase sounded strange. Alright. Determined to use it, he extended his left arm and shot a black whip to the roof. Mina, what the? She whispered loudly, almost drawing Izuku's attention, who thought he heard something. Izuku, and now? He extended the other side and shot a black whip that reached the other rooftop. Ready. Kirishima, Midoriya has 2 quirks? The surprise was maximum as they watched the freckled guy propel himself into the sky and disappear on the roofs. Sero, what the heck? He shouted, snapping out of his surprise. The green-haired guy had a lot to explain when they got back on Monday. The week went by really slowly, or at least that's how it felt for the students. Each day brought a challenging exam, leaving them little time to focus on anything other than the subject at hand. There wasn't even time for Mina and her friends to talk to Izuku and explain what happened. Finally, The eagerly awaited Friday arrived, along with the final secret exam that the students had no idea about. Mina, hey, Midori-kun, can you please explain something to us? With a very friendly smile, she spoke to the freckled boy who was playing with Ochako. Izuku, sure. He put down the cards he was using and smiled at his friend. I win, Uraka-san, the brunette pouted indignantly. Ochako, when you're done with Mina, let's make it best 2 out of 3. Izuku nodded and went over to the pink-haired girl who pulled him towards their group. Kirishima, Midoriya, buddy, with a slightly nervous smile, he greeted the green-haired boy who rolled his eyes. Izuku, let's get straight to the point, shall we? The friends looked at each other. Yes, what you saw is real. I did go up to the roof with 2 black whips that came out of my arms. Sero, friend, do you have 2 quirks? He looked impressed at the freckled boy, who was carefully choosing his words. Izuku, actually, I have more than 2, it's more of a way to use the absurd amounts of energy I have. His friends blinked in surprise. As I mentioned on the USJ trip, my body generates so much energy that even for me, it's volatile. So, I use that energy in different ways, and one of them is this. He opened his hand, and 2 whips emerged, slicing through the air. Kaminari, incredible, he reached out his hand curiously to touch one of them, and it instantly struck him. Ow! Izuku, I still don't have complete control, so I recommend not doing that again unless you want to lose a finger. The blonde withdrew his sore finger. Mina, it's amazing, Midori-kun, she shook her friend, who had a small smile. And so, the last day of exams began before their mysterious final test, which, according to the Class B blonde, was against robots. How wrong he was. Friday arrived, and of course, Class A was excited, thinking it would be a simple test against robots like the entrance exam. Kaminari was already savoring the sweet victory in his stay at an announced camp, eating until bursting and telling horror stories around a campfire made him excited just thinking about it. Too bad his red-haired friend wasn't nearby. Aizawa, by the way, this is your final test. He pointed to the teachers, scaring the students. We can't settle for something as simple as robots. We need to keep your powers in top condition, so you'll be fighting against us. Kaminari, we're doomed, he whispered, frightened of his teachers, who maintained their composure. Aizawa, you win in 2 ways. The first is by defeating us and putting these handcuffs on us. He showed the typical police restraints. The second is by leaving the area. As heroes, you need to know when it's better to retreat and call for help. Of course, we have limitations to make it fair. Momo, how will the fights be organized? She dared to ask to avoid suspicion. Aizawa, 2 of you against 1 teacher, that's simple. Although now that we're missing 1, he looked to where Shinso was coming from. He has been selected to be in the hero course next year, so we need to test his abilities now. Mina, who will we fight against? Her teacher smiled, scaring most of the students. Aizawa, see for yourselves. He pressed a button, revealing the matchups. Nezu vs Pinky, Charge Bolt. Snipe vs Invisible Girl, Tentacle. Ectoplasm vs Froppy, Tsukiyomi. Powerloader vs Ida, Tailman. Eraserhead vs Shoto, Creechy. P-Mike vs Earphone Jack, Anima. Midnight vs Cellophane, Shinso. Cementos vs Red Riot, Sugar Rush. Number 13 vs Aravity, Aoyama, I refuse to write his hero name. Ochako, this, sensei, the teacher looked at her, waiting for her to speak. Midoriya-kun and Bakugo are missing. Aizawa, that's correct. The hero you have to fight is, something in the sky caught everyone's attention as he descended from above. All Might, it's me, he spoke with a smile only directed at the villains. Izuku, yup, I'm dead. His friend beside him sympathized with him and affectionately ruffled his hair. Momo, you're so dramatic, Izuku. The freckled boy stuck his tongue out, causing the raven-haired girl to pinch his cheeks. Aizawa, enough of nonsense, it's time to prepare. The tests will begin now. Some started to devise a plan to defeat their hero-turned-enemy, while others thought about how to pass the time while their classmates went to the camp. It seemed impossible for them to overcome the test ahead. Shoto, Yaoyorozu, both were ready to face their teacher, and the bicolors still didn't have a good idea of what to do. Momo, I already told you, you can call me Momo, Shoto-kun. With a pout, she looked at the bicolor, who felt a bit uncomfortable with the friendly gestures of the raven-haired girl. Anyway, what do you need? She spoke with a friendly smile to her future fiancé. Shoto, do you have any plan to defeat Sensei? The raven-haired girl smiled and nodded at the bicolor, who was surprised. What are we going to do? Momo, we're going to win, Shoto. As kind as ever, she guided her partner to the test area. On Izuku's side, there was pure tension. He understood the reasoning of both his teacher and the director, as neither of them agreed when put together. They usually ended up fighting and losing the exercise they were given. It was clear that they wanted them to work together at least to pass this test. Katsuki, listen up, piece of crap, this is what we're going to do. You step aside, and I'll take down All Might. Simpler than that is impossible. He acted as the leader, causing the freckled boy to sigh in stress. Got something to say? Izuku, firstly, there's no need to shout all the time, for God's sake. Did your explosions make you deaf or what? The blonde got angrier with the green-haired boy's attitude. Secondly, do you really want to face the number one hero? Did your brain rot from all the smoke you inhale? Katsuki, he tried to hit the freckled boy, but he spoke first. Izuku, All Might can change the weather with a single punch. Even with those weights, he's faster, stronger, and has 4 times the experience. Do you really think you'll win in a direct fight? The blonde stood still, completely angered by the absurd logic. You're such an idiot. Katsuki, fine, then what do you suggest, idiot? Izuku, run and avoid fighting the number one hero at all costs. Your only job is to get to the other side, understood? The blonde looked away. Look on the bright side, you can leave me behind and claim it was for winning. Katsuki, TSK, standing in front of the freckled boy, they both entered the fake city. I'm going first because I'm the leader. Is that clear? If you lag behind, I won't come back. Izuku, sure. With a smile, he walked at a safe distance, knowing what would happen. 5 seconds later, a strong gust of wind struck the blonde, sending him flying backward. When he looked, the windows in the buildings were broken, and All Might was in front of him. All Might, I'm sorry, heroes, but I won't let you pass. With a terrified look, he hit the blonde in the stomach, making him vomit his lunch on the ground. Now, he turned to face his successor, who was no longer there. Izuku, I'm sorry to say, All Might, but this fight has to be at another time. He spoke behind the American, who only saw his successor disappear with the blonde slung over his shoulder.